Hi, my name is Brian Wesbury. I'm, to remind you, Chief Economist at First Trust Advisors. We are a money management firm out of Wheaton, Illinois, and in a way, my day job is to think about how to protect people's assets and grow them over time. And as a result, I get very worried about the size of government, the growth trajectory of government, tax rates, and the intersection of policy and public policy with the economy. Also, back in 1995 and 1996, I was the chief economist of the Joint Economic Committee. So I was here when the government shut down in 1995 and 1996. Part of that was over a debt limit vote. And I want to remind you that back then the deficit was about 4% of GDP. We used the phrase $200 billion deficits as far as the eye can see. Today, we're talking about $1 trillion plus deficits as far as the eye can see. 11% of GDP versus 3 or 4% of GDP. And so when I compare this back to 1995, 96, I do it for a reason. And that is that the government was shut down. It was a major political brouhaha, if you will. We can decide who won, who lost. But in the end, by the late 1990s, early 2000s, we had a surplus in the federal budget. It was just 10 years ago when the federal budget was in surplus. I remember Alan Greenspan saying he was worried about the surplus because it was going to get rid of all the government bonds in existence, and he couldn't run monetary policy if there weren't any government bonds. That was just 10 years ago. We now have $1.5 trillion, 11% deficits, and that's why I'm here. I support, as a financial market representative, if you will, and an economist, the use of the debt limit as a tool to get spending down and the budget under control. Not allowing the debt limit to increase, if we were to hold it steady, is not a default on U.S. government debt. There never once in the past 65 years on a monthly basis have revenues been less than the interest owed on the debt. In other words, as long as we decide to pay the interest, we can pay it every single month from now into infinity, basically, without a tax hike, without changing anything of the budget today. By the way, any principal that becomes due, we can roll it over. We'll just issue more debt. It doesn't increase the debt cap. And so the bottom line is we will not default on our debt to foreigners, ruining the United States credit rating if we don't raise the debt limit. Number two, Standard & Poor's reduced the outlook for the American bond market to a negative outlook. This was reported by some to be because people were worried that the debt limit would not increase. Anyone who believes that has to go read the statement put out by Standard & Poor's. It was very, very clear. It said, the Obama administration has proposed $4 trillion or trillions of dollars in deficit reduction. Representative Ryan has done the same thing. If they were to get together and move in something like this direction, cutting trillions before the election of 2012, we wouldn't put the country on negative outlook. However, we judge, this was Standard & Poor's, and I'm paraphrasing, we judge that these two sides are so far apart that they're going to be unable to come together before 2014. And in our opinion, again, I'm quoting Standard & Poor's, that means that the budget is at risk and that in fact they were putting us on negative outlook because of the political environment, not on reaching consensus about cutting spending, not because someone like the Tea Party is talking about not raising the debt ceiling. Finally, was looking at the Bible last night and read about Solomon. Solomon was considered wise. He asked for wisdom from God, and he was presented with a dilemma. 2 women, 1 baby. They both claimed it was their baby, and he said, okay, cut it in half. And this smoked out, if you will, the real mother, because she was willing to give up the baby, not have it cut in half. And I look at this debt ceiling debate sort of as that kind of story. That we have to be serious enough about cutting spending, and using the debt ceiling as that tool is perfectly, in my opinion, logical. It's not extreme. And finally, my final point is that global financial markets, they're smart enough to figure this out. They're smart enough to understand the nuances of the political debate. And if the debt ceiling is used as a tool, a weapon of mass discipline, I believe that the financial markets not only will handle it, but move through it. And if it works, and spending is actually cut, we will leave the other side of this debate in very good shape. I want to remind you again, the early 1990s was the jobless recovery. The late 1990s was one of the greatest booms in history. And part of that boom was because spending was reduced at the federal government level. We were able to keep tax rates lower. The government fell as a share of GDP, and the private sector exploded upward. This is a very important battle. I believe the financial markets can handle it just fine. And what they're asking for is spending reduction. And if the tool of the debt ceiling is used, they're going to be A-OK with that. Thank you.